Alright, in this video I'm going to be tying up the Wilde fly. It is a fly that was used by Wilde. He was a chief of fish and wildlife for the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, and I guess this was one of his favorites. This is just a cool looking fly. More of a traditional looking wet fly, and just the use of floss for the body is just interesting, and I really like it. I've tied up a couple of these before. So the original calls for a stainless steel size 1 hook. Again, I think that's fairly large. I'm going to tie it on a size 2. This is a 34 007 Mustad stainless steel hook in the vise right now. I will be tying this with Danville's flat wax nylon thread in a red color. And I'm going to go ahead and lay down some thread. Take that about a hook eye length past the hook eye. Snip our thread. Next I'm going to tie in some fine tinsel. I'm not sure what brand this is. This is very small tinsel. I'd say like a mil wide. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie that in on the side there. I need probably a foot of it just to be safe. That might be a little overkill, but just to be safe, a foot of it. I'm just going to capture that on my material holder here, and we'll come back to it. The next material it calls for is a fluorescent green floss, and I've got this kind of fluorescent green floss here. Again, I'm not sure what brand. I'm probably going to pull off 2 feet or so of that. Just go ahead and cut it off. Makes it easier. I'm trying to do this with another bobbin. And before that I tie that in, actually, I'm going to go ahead and bring my thread all the way down to the barb of the hook. And I'll go ahead and tie that floss in now. I'm just going to wrap it in half around my thread, and then just capture it right at the butt of the fly. Now, this fly calls for kind of a cigar-shaped body, and typically that would be done with the floss, but I'm going to go ahead and start to build that cigar shape with thread just to save on materials. So I'm going to advance the thread back and forth, but just stopping short each time. So not quite to the end where I started, at the back of the hook or at the front of the hook. And we're going to do that several times just to kind of fatten up the body before we move to our thread. Our floss. It's just easier to do with thread, I think, than it is the floss, and thread's cheap. Floss can be expensive, especially if it's silk. So you can see I'm starting to build up this fatter body, and you kind of just want to continue to build up that center section almost into a cigar shape. So you can see it requires a fair amount of thread. It certainly would require a decent amount of floss. Okay, so once I kind of have the general shape down, I'm going to take the thread all the way back down and then all the way back up, just to give that kind of smooth transition. And again, I'm going to take that probably about an eye's length behind the eye. Now I'm going to take my floss and start to wrap that. You have to be careful with the floss, because if you snag that hook tip, it'll start to fray, particularly this floss. I don't think this is very high-end floss. But I'm going to just start to wrap that around the body, and touching wraps. If it starts to come unwind, just come back, take your time. loose on me here. Just take your time, it's not a race. And again, I'm just going to kind of take this back, not quite to the end. And then when I move forward, not quite all the way forward. Looks like I can probably do that one more time with the amount of material that I have. So you end up with this nice, fat, kind of cigar-shaped body. Now I'm going to go ahead and proceed to move forward and capture that floss with my thread. And then I just want to trim away the tag of the floss, just any of that excess. So you can see there's some frays there from the floss, just trim them off. Not a big deal. Next we're going to advance our tinsel forward. So these should be nice, kind of wide wraps. Try to keep them even. Just adds a nice little flashy accent to that body. And then again, just capture that with your thread. And then trim your excess. Alright, so this might kill some purists, but that's too pretty of a body for me just to leave exposed like that. And shad have rough mouths, so before I know it, I'm sure that's going to be a frayed mess. So I like to take little Sally Hansen's here and just seal up that body. It soaks in very well to the floss and helps protect the tinsel and floss body. And seems not to change the color too much, but I think you'll end up with a much more durable fly like that. Alright, the next material we're going to tie in is a white hackle, and the instructions say to tie that in wet fly style, so to me that says like a throat. So I'm going to just select a neck hackle, something fairly webby. Something about like that. I'm going to strip off all of the fluff. And then we are left with some nice barbs all about the same length. And I'm going to tie this in relatively thick, so about this much, this many barbs. I'm just going to grab the tips and try to align them as best I can, and then simply pull them away from the stem. Take my other finger, just pinch to grab, and you end up with the good selection of feathers with the tips all about the same length. Now we want to tie in the tips about the length of the bend, not too much further. And I'm just going to tie that in with the pinch wrap, pull straight down, give a couple more wraps just to capture, and then take a look. That might be a little bit thick materials, but still a good looking fly. Now I like my throats to kind of stick up slightly, so I'm going to lift that throat or hackle up and just do one wrap underneath and kind of pull that straight under. Give it one wrap on top and then do that again. And that's just going to get that throat to kind of stand up a bit. Go ahead and trim off your tag end there of the hackle. Just a few there. And now we're going to just build up a little red head. And give it a whip finish. And trim our thread. Try not to cut the throat. And last but not least, touch our thread wraps on the head with a little bit of Sally Hansen's to protect those and get a nice shiny head. And that is the cold Wilde fly. I just think that's a great looking fly. Can't wait to try that on the water this year. I hope you enjoy it.